Hey y'all, hey y'all, hey y'all. This is Rose AJ with the Carnivore Connection, where soulful and heartfelt conversations take place. Y'all get this. I have Miss Brenda Ramirez. We are both Pacific Northwesters. We're actually next door neighbors, give 40 or 50 miles. Can you believe it? A homie from my neck of the woods. So, y'all, it's a little wet and gloomy here today, but we are bringing the sunshine, our inner sunshine, to the game with maybe a sun lamp and some smiles. But before we begin with Miss Brenda's interview, I do want to remind you guys that the Carnivore Connection coaching group for women, the beta test group, is going to begin from September the 9th through November the 25th on Mondays at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And if you are 50 years old or older and you want to learn about the carnivore way of life, or you need community support, education, guidance, and coaching, please stop in. It's $45 for all 12 weeks. I'll drop a link in the show notes. And then also, if you are in the Pacific Northwest, any part of Tacoma, Washington, Seattle, I will be hosting MEATUP, MEATUP, Meetup Carnivore Connection Meetup on Point Ruston on September the 14th at 10 a.m. We're going to do a 5K walk around Point Ruston. And then immediately thereafter at 11:15, we'll go across the plaza to Jewel Box Cafe and have a coffee social. So come to both, or come to one, or come to none, whichever you choose to do. But I would love to say hello in person, give you guys a hug, and maybe you can meet another friend, MEAT friend. Okay, guys. And it doesn't matter what your age is for this. It doesn't matter what your age is for this. Okay, bring the kiddos too.
Okay. Hi, I am 65 years old. I'm in Olympia, Washington, very close to Deer Rose. And I live down here out in a rural area. Have a lot of like cow pastures, and we have a lot of green out here. I love it out here. So I'm close to the city, but we out here where we have, it's pretty peaceful. It's pretty nice. My husband and I live here with our two kitties, and I also manage the care for my mom, who's in an adult family home nearby. So that's something important to me every day. That is a priority. I work from home part-time remote, so that's very convenient, very helpful to do that. So since I was in my 20s, I always had an interest in eating healthy. I'm not sure where it started from, but I know I would go to the Fred Meyer nutrition section. At that time, it started as a nutrition section outside the store. It wasn't even inside the store because it was a specialty. If you went to the health food store or the health food section, and anyway, I would get magazines that promoted healthy food, and magazines and some. I really wasn't into books about healthy eating at the time, but a lot of magazines that were available. So I did the things like alfalfa sprouts and Boca burgers, veggie burgers, soy cheese, almond cheese, all those kind of alternatives to meat. Which I ate meat back then, but I thought it was amazing. I was learning through the magazines that if you ate less meat and ate all these veggies and fruits, I didn't eat too many fruits, but it was a lot of grains and veggies, things like that. So I did that for a long time, and I did some exercise during the time. I did like um, jazzercise way back then, and took some aerobic classes, and I had aerobic uh, videotapes, VHS tapes back then, and I would do those at home maybe. Anyway, I did things here and there for exercise, but so somewhere about in my 30s, I had a diagnosis of high cholesterol, and so then I really said, okay, no meat, no beef or pork and seafood for quite a long time. I just got used to that. And so I thought that was the right way to eat. And I didn't pick up meat for many years. So it went through many years of lots of salads, smoothies, a lot of smoothies, juices, eating what I thought was pretty healthy. But along also all that time, I had irritable bowel syndrome, I had bloating, I had gas, I had digestive issues constantly, constantly. And you would learn that, oh, you should have more fiber and lots and more water. Well, so I was getting plenty of fiber and drinking water. So did not help at all. I took different things that they would tell you to take for the bloating or the gas. I remember getting stressed out because I traveling with some friends, and they wanted to go somewhere, and I was like, I need a few minutes because my stomach was so bloated and hurt. I said, I'll meet up with you. And I did like relaxation
Yes.
methods, trying to stretch and trying to relax myself because my gut hurt so bad. And I still remember one day in Vancouver, a Vancouver, Canada hotel where my friends were off having fun, and I was just, my gut hurt so bad. So anyway, that carried on for years. I was also very anemic, extremely anemic. I had a doctor call me one time on New Year's Eve, and he said, "I hope you're not planning on going out partying tonight because your iron is so low. You know, you could easily pass out." So I was like, well, I wasn't planning on it, so good to know. But yeah, I was chronically anemic. My periods were always very painful. I had fibroids and things for years, and very very bad periods. I got a hysterectomy early at 40 because I thought, well, I guess if I haven't had kids by now, I probably won't, and I can get rid of this, the horrible monthly things that were going on, causing me so much stress. It's too bad. I feel like that was too easy to have a hysterectomy. It's more natural to work your way through it. But if you know the right way to eat and proper way to eat, which I didn't at the time, I just thought I did. We had so much propaganda on the way to eat. Well, so it's funny. I would be introduced to some friends. Well, one of my friends, she introduced me to her husband as, yeah, this is my friend who, she doesn't eat meat. She tells her whole family at this gathering. It's like, yeah, she doesn't eat meat. And I said, well, I eat some chicken and some fish. But they thought it was weird. And I thought, well, it's not too weird to me because I had a vegetarian friend who, when we would go out, I was always wanting to make sure that she could be accommodated for her diet. And sometimes we would go to like an Asian restaurant, maybe Vietnamese or Thai, and we would both get maybe tofu, a tofu dish because we could share. And so I would do that. And I was used to having a vegetarian friend and not eating a bunch of meat.
Can
And
I can
yes,
I ask you here? So this sounds like your turning point was your cholesterol test when you were around 30?
yeah, in my 30s,
30s.
I
Yeah.
said, oh, I better not eat meat. And
S And so in addition to that, prior, like in your childhood or your teenage or even college years, did you struggle with weight or doing any type of dieting, any binging or Jenny Craig or anything that might have been going on during that time? Or were you in a normal eater? And then things kind of changed as you got to 20 and 30. Am I making
well,
sense?
yes.
Okay.
So, it's interesting. I remember being a kid and realizing that, well, we were pretty poor, but so we didn't have a lot of extra food. But I do know that whenever there was like meat, like hot dogs or bologna, because it was cheap, I was all over it. And I think my body knew, yeah, you need that. But I remember thinking, yeah, hot dog, I would eat them cold because I knew it was like that was a treat. And we had other things but growing up, I really wasn't overweight. I was pretty active. We didn't have a lot of extra money. I think when I was in high school, I was at a good weight. I did work at it sometimes though, because peer pressure and wanting to be skinny and that. But it wasn't difficult to maintain a really good, somewhat lean weight. Then in my early 20s, I didn't ever do binging and purging, but I did do some binging sometimes. I'll tell you what, I had to give up making cookies from scratch because it used to be a thing for me where I would make homemade chocolate chip cookies or oatmeal walnut chocolate chip cookies that I would take to work or to give away. But along the way, I would be eating and eating and eating them, and I had a hard time stopping. So it got to a point where I said, I cannot make these anymore. I just cannot make cookies. So what I would do, I did buy really good fresh bakery cookies for other people, and I would eat those if there were any left over. I was always hoping there'd be extra, but homemade oatmeal chocolate chip cookies were my thing. And brownies, oh my gosh, brownies with walnuts and or macadamia nuts and chocolate chips. I was terrible with those. They were really bad. I was really bad with them. Did not have sober behavior around those at all. So for quite some time, I started to battle with the weight in my 40s more. In my 30s, I had some off and on weight gain, but then I would just do like a fast. I had a friend, we'd say, let's do a juice fast. And so we do a juice fast, but that would be hard, very hard. Or we do a diet together and, out of magazines or whatever. I did not do like Jenny Craig or I didn't go to any of those places. I didn't do Weight Watchers, but I definitely did diets. I did all the diets that came out in the magazines. I actually did Atkins once, and I don't know why I didn't stick with it. I'm not sure, but I remember getting that Atkins book, and maybe it was hard to believe, and maybe my weight wasn't that bad back then that I saw it as something I needed to continue to do. Yeah. But then in my 40s, when I got married to my husband, I was at a good weight at the time. I was at a good weight. Poor guy, when he married, then things changed. But it started off kind of bad because at our reception we had ice cream sundae bar, and so we had a whole bunch of ice cream left. And he was an ice cream. I mean, he really enjoyed ice cream. When we dated, he'd say, "Can I bring over some ice cream?" And I thought, okay. I wasn't really into ice cream, but because he wanted to come over, okay, bring some ice cream over. So then after our wedding reception, we had all this ice cream to eat up. So we ate ice cream almost every night, and that wasn't so good for me. But then other things like lettuce stress, different things happened, and I just was gaining weight. I did start eating more beef and pork gradually because he liked beef and some pork like bacon, but not excessively. But I finally said, okay, I'll start eating some burgers because he thought I was like a vegetarian. He would tell people, yeah, when I married her, she was almost a vegetarian. So I was into salads, and I put like chicken or something, a salmon on the salads, but I ate a lot of salads and veggies and sandwiches, somewhat, but I did lean towards gluten-free for quite a while. So when I had bread, I would try to get gluten-free. For some reason, I thought maybe that would help my gut because I still had the gut issues for all these years. And I decided to go gluten-free, pretty much, not totally strict. Like if we went out to a restaurant, I might eat, like if we had a burger, if they had a gluten-free bun, I would ask for it. Sometimes I'd take the bun off, but I wasn't totally strict on the gluten-free. I just thought, well, it's better if you do gluten-free. So anyway, I gradually ballooned up quite a bit, and I just had a terrible time losing any weight. It seemed like the more I'd work out, I would work out really hard. I'd commit. I'd do all this, going to the gym so much, and sweating and sweating and working hard. But I just couldn't lose the weight. And dieting was. I tried different things. Finally, a keto diet my husband and I did together for a couple months before we went to Hawaii. Yeah, that worked. But we didn't keep it up. So then come a while later, it was during the COVID pandemic, when I got to where, I wasn't watching TV because I didn't want to watch TV at that time. So I started using YouTube, and our church wasn't meeting in person. So I was looking online at churches and different studies and things. And because I started using YouTube, things would come up in the suggestions. And I thought, oh, I should look into keto and see if there's stuff about keto. So I started doing that, and I started following some keto influencers and trying to encourage myself to do better and pick up keto again. Thing was, I was a lazy keto person. I didn't want to track. So that it works well if you do the tracking and you do that. But I was doing a lazy keto. I did start to lose a little bit of weight, so that was good. But while I was watching all these keto influencers, I noticed some carnivore suggestions pop up, and I thought, what the heck is that? And so then I'd be like, well, that is weird. That is so strange. So I just kept, out of curiosity, looking at more and more. And it triggered a memory back when many years before, I saw this documentary on TV about the Eskimos that were eating just whale and seals, and they had no plants. And I thought, well, how did they survive? No plants? That just seemed like crazy to me. How could they do that? But obviously they did well, and that's what they survived on. So it reminded me of that. Got more and more into, I started following Dr. Sean Baker and Dr. Ken D. Berry. Those were my favorites to start with. And I got both of their books, Carnivore Diet by Sean Baker, and then Doctors or Lies My Doctor Told Me by Ken D. Berry. So I got those books and read them, and I said, well, I'm just going to have to try this, give it a shot. So I gradually started cutting things out. Like one of the things I would do at night, I would have for a long time, I did red wine, some nuts, and some cheese at night. It seemed like I was doing that for, it started out kind of slow, and then it just got to be like, I'd have wine once a week, and then it was a couple nights a week and more. So I said, this isn't a good idea. So I cut out the wine, and I cut out the nuts, and I didn't really cut out, I think I cut out cheese for a while when I first started Carnivore, but I knew those were things they were a habit that needed to change. And then I gradually cut things out, was on Carnivore, and my standard meal most days was like hamburger and eggs in a bowl. I would just fill this one. I had a certain bowl. I'd like cook a couple hamburger patties or ground beef, just crumbled, and then a couple eggs, maybe 2 to 3 eggs, and in a bowl. And I ate that 2 or 3 times a day. And it was easy, it was satisfying, and it tasted good. So that was pretty standard for me. I really, really liked the simplicity, and it really helped me to cut some cravings and things like that. So that that was really, really good for quite a while. It's almost 3 years that I've been eating as a carnivore. I haven't been perfect, but like you've said many times to your other guests, it's like you do carnivore your way. But sometimes I have um eaten some things that aren't carnivore, but I'm not going to beat myself up for it unless they're things that I really shouldn't do again. But anyway, it'll be 3 years, August 1st. Then over all this time period, I lost 60 pounds initially, and which was a huge change. And then I gained a few back like about a year ago. I gained 5 pounds back, and then maybe it hasn't been a year, but I'm struggling with a few pounds, but it's okay. I'm working with it. And I've also lost all the digestive issues. They cleared up the first month. Everything. I didn't have any more issues with GERD, irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, gas. I'll say honestly, gas on a rare occasion if too much dairy. If I eat too much dairy, then yeah, there you go. But it's not like it was in the old days. So that's good. I love that when you eat this simply, you don't need deodorant. I've noticed I don't have body odor unless I eat something that has spices, which on occasion, if somebody prepares something and it's meat, but it has spices on it, I don't want to offend them, especially if it's family. So I will eat it, but I'll notice that escaping my body the next day. So, and it's not terrible usually, but I'll notice it. I went to a barbecue this last Saturday, and somebody made pork belly, and it was awesome. But it was in a sauce that it didn't have oil, but it had apple cider vinegar and some spices, but also had sugar. So it had brown sugar and bourbon. I thought, well, it looked really good, smelled really good. And I thought, you know what? It's pork belly on the outside. And oh my gosh, it was so good. But you know what? The next day, I could smell that sauce or the flavor of it when it exited my body. So I could smell it. TMI, I don't know, but that's just how usually you don't have any odor. But if you have things that are spices or dairy, you might have a little bit of odor. Yeah. Also, the energy I have is so much better than I had before. I was tired. I could take a nap in the day and that kind of thing, but I don't need that these days. I have the energy I need. Um, Clarity of mind is much better. I very stable, stable mood. I get anxiety, which I have. Oh, I'll have to restate that. So when something might trigger anxiety in me, like where I'm a little concerned about something, in the past, I could have been overworked, worked up about it, and be more, it would, you'd be aware of it and you could see it on me. But now I'm much more calm and steady and stable. I don't get worked up about things. And there's always things that we can go through that could trigger an emotional uh, reaction. But I feel so much better, and it's so much easier to handle issues these days.
You talking about that carnivore zen there,
Yeah.
Brenda? That
Yes.
carnivore zen, like you're a spiritual person as well,
Mhm.
but you just have that inner knowing everything is going to be
Yeah.
okay, that we don't have to be reactive, right, to
Right.
everything that comes our way. Yeah, since the carnivore diet, that has changed for me because I have a really strong personality and really strong reactions, but I'm kinda like, I would just say, like you said, even keeled. Don't
Yes,
put out energy where it's not needed,
right.
right? So let me ask you, 3 years into this carnivore lifestyle, you've mentioned, the beef the pork belly that you just had. I'm curious, like, when you have exceptions to whatever your eating protocol is, if it's really dialed in and you have exceptions, how does your body respond other than like the odor that you were mentioning, escaping your body? Do you have any inflammation or any energy dips the next couple of days? Anything? Any changes?
Good question. So typically, I'm not eating sugar. I do have um, some sweetener, the stevia sweetener, in some things that I might drink occasionally. But this weekend, when I was planning to go to this barbecue, and they had a sign up list, and I knew that I was going to be late. And when I looked at it, it was like, well, they've got everything except for dessert. And I thought, oh, normally I wouldn't do dessert. But I thought, okay, I'll make a carnivore cheesecake, or, but I will make sure there's sweetener in it because most people will expect it to be sweeter. So I thought I'll bring a carnivore cheesecake plus some berries. So I got some local blueberries, which are in season. So that to me is like, I don't eat them, but if I'm going to provide food, I really try to do this a healthy option, as far as my view on it. So local berries to me is a really good thing. So the carnivore cheesecake, I found a recipe, hadn't tried it before, and then it did ask for powdered monk fruit, and I had some in the cupboard. It might have been a little old, but the thing, but so I used that, and I tasted it. Oh my gosh, the batter tasted great. See, that's one of the things when I used to be a baker years ago, is be like, oh, let me taste it, and oh, it's so good. But so I did taste it because I thought, well, before I put it in the oven, it better taste good. And so, yes, it tasted good, but it had some sweetener in it. It wasn't a terrible amount, but um, so I baked it, and I took it there. Well, it some of it got eaten, but there was plenty left. And I brought it home. Oh, I actually had a piece there because I wanted to see, well, how's it taste? And so that was sugar that I'm not used to, sweetener that I'm not used to having. And then I actually had some when I got home that night too. So what I noticed, inflammation the next day, in my throughout my body. I just felt like inflammation. I felt achy. Even when I went to, well, so that was Saturday, and I actually had a little. This is why there's certain things you shouldn't have in your house, or uh, yeah, I hate to throw things out. I'm so that's honesty though. Yeah. So I thought, well, I'll put it in the freezer, but I had a little bit yesterday, and I thought, well, maybe my husband would want some at some point, but he was out of town this weekend. So all that to say, inflammation from the sugar, and that was I so it'll keep me away from it. I don't want it anymore. I'll have to say something. By when I first transitioned to carnivore, I was saturating my mind with all those videos and reading the books, and just absorbing all this content to renew my mind. For one, to realize, yes, meat is good for you, and don't eat all the carbs. And so I got my way of looking at foods that weren't on my okay list are was they're toxic. So when I go to a grocery store, I mean, there's so many aisles there. It's all toxic. You read a label, and I've always been a reading labels. I've always read the labels, but even some of those things that I read the labels back then, I thought, oh, that's good for you. That's good for you. But nowadays, it's like almost everything that has a label is not so good. A friend of mine just shared about there's fresh peaches at the store in a box, that on the box it had an ingredient beside the peaches, and it was what was sprayed on the peaches. She said, people read your label. I said, yeah, isn't that awful that you can have fresh peaches and still have an ingredient, something that's toxic, or, could be. So,
Well,
yeah,
I say the fruits nowadays, unless you really know them, they're actually man-made. They're
yeah.
mixed and matched, and
Hmm.
no, they're man-made to be
Yeah.
sweeter, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, and all that good stuff. So your body responds to things through inflammation.
Hmm.
If it's not a good thing for you, does it take you long to get back on track, or do you just have an exception and then move on?
I'm moving on. So,
Yeah, good.
yeah.
Good. So when I started the carnivore journey, it was in January of 2020. And Brenda, so I have a history of compulsively overeating because of the foods that I was eating, right? Staying in that addiction trap, right? But when I started carnivore, everything was fine until I took one day off. I think it was around Easter or for Easter. It started that spiral for a couple of days of me having everything that I wanted under the sun, then reined it back in. It took a couple of days to level out. It took me until August of 2020 to realize that there were foods that I couldn't have.
Mm.
And I went the rest of the year kind of in peace. I didn't have any more exceptions or days off or binges. So actually, it was August 20th, 2020 that was my last organized binge where I was like, oh, I'm going to, right? And then went through the rest of the year. But January 2021, I was like listening to, I don't know who, I don't know, maybe it was that addiction voice that said, oh, go ahead and go back and see what foods you can, reintroduce, go back to the ketogenic lifestyle. And I did that for 6 months. And I kept being triggered. I kept binging and doing things, right? And then I finally got it once and for all that there are foods I will never be able to moderate, touch, and the ketogenic lifestyle is not for me because I kept relapsing the first year that I
Hmm.
was doing it. And then when I tried to reintroduce, so I'm all meat based now. My exceptions are like pork rinds and cheese and sausage and bacon. Those are the exceptions. What about you? What are some foods that are you find that are carnivore foods, but that you don't have in your normal palate, but that are exceptions for you? Like for some people, it might even be dairy.
Right. So I really like dairy, but I have to say there's that is a challenge for me, especially I don't know. It's a little bit of a challenge for me because I have a favorite cheese, Dubliner cheese from Costco. Oh my gosh. But I do better when I decide to track, when I track how much I'm doing. Uh, this past week I've been tracking. I don't track all the time. I'm doing a tracking right now to keep me keep me on course, and I'm actually meeting with I'm consulting with a hormone specialist the end of the week. And so I'm doing, I had some labs done, and then I'm having, yeah, I have a consultation scheduled. And one of the things, you have to have a food log for a week. So I said, okay, I can do that. I love chronometer, is really easy to use. Yeah. So, but I don't like to track all the time. So if I'm, most of the time I'm good with the Dubliner, but yeah, I have to say that is a weakness, and I know I'm being weak when I have it. Well, I shouldn't say every time I have it, because if I'm tracking it, it's like, okay, at 1 ounce, and I'm accountable for that. But if I'm not tracking, I don't do well with it. So yeah, there have been times where I try to just keep it out of the house, and then my husband, I don't want to deprive my husband of certain things. So it'd be like, don't we have any cheese? I go, I don't want to say, well, it's because I can control myself, so yeah, so I just have to work on that. And because he should be able to eat what he wants to eat. So, yeah.
It sounds like he's supportive also.
He's,
Supportive.
he doesn't eat like I do. It's still hard for him to believe that you can eat all this fat. Like when we have steaks or something that has fat on it, or something that has fat, I cut it off for him sometimes, or ask him, I'll say, save your fat for me, because he won't eat it. He used it when he eats eggs. If he's gonna scramble some eggs for himself, he might not do all the yolks, and he used to put them down the drain. And once I saw him do that, I said, no, save the yolks for me. So he knows, save the yolks for me. And I'll always find a way to have a yolk, whether it's raw or cooked. I'll eat them either way, but I make good use of them. There's so much nutrition in them. So he's supportive. He's very grateful that I did lose all the weight. That was a good thing, and that I feel better, and I'm more, I'm doing so much better in so many ways. So he appreciates that, but he's not fully into it, but he really hasn't gotten into it. So maybe gradually, but yeah.
Yeah, you're doing you the best way you can, but at least he's not sabotaging or talking negatively. So he's very supportive in that
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, okay. So, Brenda, you are a woman that you said you're 65 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I want you to imagine that there's someone else who is 65 years old who has been through a lifetime of struggle. I mean, from childhood forward, it could be from like 12, 16 forward, struggling with their weight and have never had success. And they grew up with the myths that you and I did. And they are contemplating to just stop and just sit there on the bench, on the couch, just to stay where they're at, because this is all that they've known. They have never been successful, or if they have, it's just been for fleeting months or moments of their life. What words of wisdom could you give that 65-year-old sitting on the couch to get them off the couch and to try again? Whether it's the carnivore way of life, ketogenic, or whatever, what words of wisdom could you give that person?
Oh my goodness. I've been there. It's so frustrating to think you've done everything, you've tried everything, and it just doesn't seem to work, and it seems hopeless. But there is hope. So don't give up. There's um, there's so much available to us now, and it's getting more and more, like what Rose is doing, trying to share, especially to the over 50 women. It's there's so many out there that are willing and wanting to help us overcome the lifetime of defeat and the lifetime of struggle, the lifetime of aches and pains, and um, so many things that we just thought we had to live with. Life can be so much better, and then it can get better and better and better. It once you start down the path of first educating yourself, renewing your mind to what's out there, in debunking the lies that we've been told, the propaganda that was fed to us. There's so many people, educated people, the doctors, the nutritionists that are out there, and not just carnivore, but keto even, or low carb. Just, it's all available on YouTube, and there's books if you like books. I have to say YouTube, because it was where I really started and found so much education. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. And you're going to eat if you can just change what you eat, change what you don't eat, and get some movement. When I first started Carnivore, I wasn't doing exercise. I lost my weight without exercise, more than just walking around. And I wasn't intentionally exercising. It started to work, and it was like, oh my gosh, those years I was trying so hard, sweating so hard, and it was beating up my cortisol. And we don't realize hormones are a big deal. All the things we eat, and the things that we do or don't do impact our hormones, and all those things drive our our body as a whole. So there's little steps you can take. And part of it is food, part of it is movement, part of it is, toxins that are in your home or your environment. But it's all that there's all so many things to do for free if you just take the time and focus. If take your focus off the negative things, those things that don't bring you joy, or those things that take away your time or your money, but they're not improving your life, giving you hope for a future. Just, you got to shake things up and start taking the positive steps little by little, and they'll compound. I know I've been able to not just change how I eat, but also what kind of exercise I do and the movement, but also adding things like morning sunlight to help your circadian rhythm. I take my glasses off. I go outside with my cats in the morning and get a few minutes of light. If I can, I take my shoes off and ground at the same time. So grounding is another thing that you can do for free, and you can find out more about that on YouTube or in a book or on the internet. All of this is for free. There's so many things you can do to improve your health, and it changes your life. It's so life changing to know I can do more. I'm happier. I can help other people. And it keeps getting better as I learn to do little by little bit more and little bit more to just make things part of my life going forward, that it's just healthier. And I do believe I'll be reverse aging. So it takes time, especially when we're older, but it can be done. There's a lot of things available to do that.
Amen, sister. That is, girl, you got me jumping over here like I'm off the couch. Okay. I'm about to do something. That was beautiful, Miss Brenda. Thank you so much.
I'm thankful to be able to share with people. My story isn't huge, but not everybody's story is, but it's huge to me. It may not be huge to other people, but sometimes just being an ordinary person like me that's had some major changes for my future and my family can be an encouragement to others, that maybe it can make a big difference in their lives. Just that encouragement and making some positive changes. So.
Right on. And I want to say thank you so much again for being here, Miss Brenda, and having this conversation with me, and help, shedding some light on what is actually possible at any age, and that we're in charge of our own destinies. And I like how you said how we've been spoon fed or lied to or whatever by the I won't say the establishment or the government, but I think I just did. But
Yeah.
but I look forward to connecting with you in the future.
It's fun.
Thank you.
I love your energy.
Thank you. And
Yeah.
please